All right, so if you've been following the channel, you know that here in my Colorado, that I took a sample of oil from my truck several months ago, and that was with Walmart SuperTech. And here more recently, I also took a sample of oil from that same truck, but that truck had Valvoline Restore and Protect in it. Now, the Walmart oil, as you can see right here in the screen, right here, had 4,100 miles on it, and the intermittent sample of Restore and Protect that I pulled had only 1,100 miles on it. However, there is something hidden in this data here. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But before we move on, let me just read the notes, what they said here, and then we'll take a look. All right. So first of all, they tell me, thanks for the notes. Insolubles are low at 2%. There are just a couple of items we'll want to keep an eye on. First is iron, steel parts, which is a little high on a per mile basis, but really it's not reading out, too out of line. If the engine runs fine with no odd noises, just check back after a similar oil interval to evenly compare iron. The other thing we'll watch is fuel, which is present at 0.8% of this sample. That's not a cautionary amount of fuel. Greater than 2% is too much fuel. A little fuel like that is usually from normal operation, not a problem. Looks all right overall. All right. So, first of all, by reading my notes, I didn't think much of it, but once I really dug into it and really thought about it, again, I feel like the clean test. If you also been watching my channel, you know that I made up my own test called a clean test. Although that test wasn't necessarily scientifically executed, it was more or less just entertainment and for fun. It might mean something, but let's just take a look. Let's go ahead and look at the numbers here. All right, so first up, what do we have here? We take a look. Let me just orient you a little bit. The universal averages are averages from just this engine. And I think on my last I guess oil test, they said it was, I think, it run on an average of 8,600 miles oil interval. The unit location average is just the averages of from the units that I've sent on this truck. Now, in this column right here where you see 818, again, this is a SuperTech sample, and in this column dated November the 8th, that is the Restore and Protect sample. All right, now since we're oriented, let's go ahead and smooth down and we'll begin taking a look at these numbers. Now, first up is the wear metals, which is the aluminum, chromium, you have the iron, copper, your lead, also the tin, nickel, silver, and the titanium. But now take a look at this, and we go down the list and you look at all the numbers. Um, Aluminum, iron, even though they didn't highlight iron, it's still higher, and this is 4 times less, miles on this oil. May not mean a whole lot, and if you look at the universal averages, only 4 parts per million, and that universal average is based on 8,600 miles. That's why this is a little weird. Now, if you look at iron, now they highlight iron. Now, this is going to be like your drive shaft. This is going to be like your cylinders, maybe, or anything, something like your valve train, for example. There are probably many more steel parts depending on the engine, but those are probably the ones that just come to my mind right off. Now, on a per mile basis, this has the Restore and Protect has about 4 times less miles, but got over half of the ppm that Walmart SuperTech had, which is interesting. Because why would you have more wear metals? Think about it. Aluminum is higher, your iron is higher, your copper is about half, but with again, even though it's not higher, it is half of what it is at about at about 4 times the amount of miles on the Restore and Protect. That's quite interesting. So if you think about it, if you look at the 10 and all the other stuff, that all of those things are just basically registering zero. All right. So next, let's just take a look at the additives. I'm gonna put all this together, but just go across the numbers real quick. I'm gonna kind of make a bigger picture here in a second. Now, the additives, which would be your moly, your manganese, boron, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, and barium. And if you take a look at the moly, the Restore and Protect seems to have quite a bit of moly in it when compared to the universal average and when compared to um, Walmart Super Tech. I don't know how well moly breaks down. In other words, how if I tested this again at 2 or 3 thousand miles, what would the number be? So, but either way, it seems to be higher at this point. Now the manganese, and this is a little interesting. Now, just the other day, I'm sure you guys watch Motor Oil Geek. On his latest video, he talked about the manganese and how it could be an indicator of carbon being broke down in the engine and released because manganese is a fuel additive. And if you look at that, I have 3 ppm on the manganese versus 5 ppm in the Restore and Protect of the manganese. So with 4 times less miles on the Restore and Protect, that is looking good, meaning that it is breaking it down, and that is corroborated by the insolubles, and we'll talk about that in a second. Phosphorus, I mean, if you look at the calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, barium, well, we don't have to look at barium, that's 0. But again, all of those align with the Super Tech if you think about what are those levels. So that's pretty interesting that those additives are comparable to Super Tech. But however, the boron is a little bit higher, but that could break down over time. I don't know, but still, that's usually what I think is an anti-wear and anti-rust additive. And but still, it seems to be that Restore and Protect has higher levels of moly, higher tech of boron, and whatever other special chemistry that they have. So this is all well and good. Now, all right, now let's get on down to I guess before we move on, let's talk about the contaminants. I mean, potassium, silicone, everything that's looking fairly normal. The sodium, I mean, all of those are looking nothing really necessarily concerning. So we'll just move on from those. Now let's take a look at the physical properties here. The viscosity looks fine. Then the flash point. Now the flash point should be greater than 385 F. My last sample, the SuperTech, was 405 F. This time it clocked in at 370 F. And look at the fuel, 0.8%. Now to me, that's relatively alarming because on my wife's 2021 CRV, and that car has direct injection. And that's one other thing, if you don't know, this truck here is port injection. How does it get this gas? I'm sure it can possibly get some route to, to get into the oil, but still, they have this level compared to what SuperTech had at 4,000 miles that was basically not quantifiable because it's off the curve. It's out of range because it's less than 0.5. And all of a sudden jump to 0.8, and this is corroborated by that flash point being at 370. Not sure what's going on here, but that's still interesting. Antifreeze, water, all that looks on, but now look at the insolubles. Insolubles mean that, well, the oil seems to be breaking down and having more particles inside the oil, which would make sense if it's there to break down any sort of varnish, any sort of carbon, and filter it out. Maybe some of it is too big to be filtered and just to get, be suspended in the oil, which is fine. That's one thing you want to see go up, I guess. Now, what does all this mean? Now, if we take now take a look at this. I'm gonna try to draw a bigger picture. I know what I'm about to say, what I'm about to present might be reaching a little bit, but let's just talk about something just hypothetically. All right, so now going back, let me pull up the data from my clean test here. Now, if you look at the delta weight from the right here from the SuperTech in this column here, at ambient temperature was 0.39 grams. And then if you look at the heated delta, is 34 grams. when you compare that to all the other ones, is this data real? I hope it's real. Meaning that all of these had a significant weight increase after they got heated. Okay. So where am I going with this? What I'm saying is that could it be possible? I'm not saying this is true, this is hypothetical. Could it be possible because that if you don't drive your vehicle that often, because I have been letting my truck sit for a while because I was working on a differential, working on a differential leak. And what else? I've been driving my Buick and my other cars to put miles on them. Could it be possible that if you don't drive your car on a much more, I say daily basis, that this restore and protect could possibly have a property where it creeps off enough of, say, internal parts like your drive shaft, your valve train, or cylinders or anything like that, and at startup have a much worse time at startup in terms of abrasion, metal to metal touching, so to speak. So that's why this is interesting because again, this again hypothetically suggests if you look at this weight compared to this weight when it's heated, that this oil, even when it get heated up, still has the same viscosity it would at ambient temperature. And does that mean you will have a lot of creep? All right, so I have a test for that I'm going to check, and that's going to be one of my upcoming videos. Going to be recent, so I've thought of an idea just to get a quick way to see how much this creeps off, and we'll take a look at that coming up soon. But it's still interesting that all three of these oils here, even though gear oil is gear oil, that's something different, but still I just added it just for, I don't know, just for the heck of it. It is interesting that when they were heated up, they all weighed significantly different than right here, the ambient temperature. Now, going back, looking at this data and looking at the iron and looking at the aluminum, looking at those two wear metals, in a hypothetical world, why is this number on a per mile basis that high compared to something that's 4 times as high in terms of miles over here? And why is this aluminum, you know, even higher already than oil that had 4,000 miles on it, and even higher than the universal average that had 86 on average had 8,600 mile oil change interval. So that's what I'm gonna say that's what I think. I'll take that back. I'll say that's at least what I propose as a hypothetical. I'm not saying it's right. It's just for generational conversation and let's talk about it. But I find it interesting. So what, and now with that being said, what can we attribute this extra um fuel to? So how could fuel get into a port injection engine? Now that I've never researched, I've never really had a problem with it. So you guys may have to help me out on that one. But it almost feels like that because something is becoming, I don't know how else to say it other than just to say it in this very layman way, is to say maybe because some things might be becoming unstuck from things getting, cleaned with this new oil, that something is allowing fuel to pass by that normally wouldn't allow it to pass by and then enter into the oil cycle. So I don't know. That could be true. But anyway, this here has been the presentation of the first oil change. I mean, no, not necessarily oil change. This is an intermittent sample. So what I may do, I may have to go back at another 1,100 miles on my truck, check this again and see what happened, and then check it again at 4,000 miles to have a direct comparison between the Super Tech. And then if I take another 1,100 miles, that'll give me a much clearer picture on the trend and how it is actually trending. Ideally, should have had, you say, at least 3 or maybe even 4 Super Tech oil changes over here. But again, I didn't even know I was going to do this. I just so happened to run across Restore and Protect, and it just came to me to try this, and that's why that's why it went down this way. And not only that, that would probably take quite some time to do that. But at the same time, if I would have just been checking on my truck anyways, but never had any problem with the truck, still don't have any problem with it So that's why if you're curious why I don't have any more super tech or changes. But um with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I find this fascinating overall. I find this interesting, and be on the lookout. I have a quick little test that I said I'm going to do, and we're going to do it online just like I did. I'm going to make a video out of it just like I made with the clean test. It's going to be the same deal where I'm going to collect my data and do a little small little presentation on it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys take care, and we'll see you around in the next one. Bye.